in Las Vegas. We do have Super Bowl 58 set, the Chiefs, and also the 49ers with a dramatic comeback. We'll get into a lot of that, a lot of the meat of that. Look back at the college basketball weekend, and then also the latest AP top 10. Maybe some college football notes or two. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Jack McKenzie running and directing the mothership right now, and Emery Winter is here as well doing his magic. So it's the Chiefs and 49ers. Here's a Patrick Mahomes note. He has now accomplished so much in his career that a two-time NFL MVP, two-time first-team All-Pro, he has now been a part of 6 consecutive AFC championship games. He's now a two-time Super Bowl champion. He's lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks with Brady in one of the others that he appeared in. He's about to be in his 4th. He's a two-time Super Bowl MVP, and he, of course, secured a $500 million contract, and he's now just 28 years old.
Yeah, I foolishly picked the Ravens and picked against Patrick Mahomes this week, and I thought, look, there were a lot of things that happened in that game that thought, okay, well, some of this Chiefs team looks like they did during the regular season, but when you have Patrick Mahomes, when you have Travis Kelce catching 100 yards of passes, 11 receptions, and them just making plays when they needed to. They didn't need to score in the second half because their defense under Steve Spagnuolo is so good. I'll never doubt him again until somebody beats him 2 years in a row. It's just amazing what they've done with a supporting cast on offense around him that's not up to par based on their previous years.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm surprised. I kind of said this Friday. I don't know why people were sitting there just so willing to doubt Patrick Mahomes because the receivers weren't that good in the regular season or because this or that reason or whatever, because Travis Kelce's distracted by Taylor Swift or whatever reasons people were hoping or wish casting for the end of this Chiefs run, at least as far as this year goes. And I understand the Ravens were a very good team. They were the number 1 seed for a reason, but it's Patrick freaking Mahomes. I mean, receiving core, Kelce, offensive line, all those guys mattered in that game. The defense mattered in a major way. But, yeah, I think just when you've got a team led by that guy, number 15, it's hard to go against them. And I know that I am never going to ever again. And I just had that feeling on Friday of, man, there's certainly a lot of talk about Baltimore, but, man, Kansas City is still plenty dangerous. And they were not only dangerous, they were dominant against Baltimore for the most part. I mean, that was a very convincing win. And you knew that they were the best team when you went your separate ways. And so, back in the Super Bowl once again. I know there's going to be some fatigue. There's also going to probably be some massive numbers because of the amount of star power that franchise has. So you'll get your haters, but you'll also get your folks who are fired up to see that team back in the Super Bowl. And just amazing watching him at White House High School. You knew he was a pretty special talent. Hearing about him growing up because everybody knew who his dad was, having played in the majors, and just seeing him around town and whatnot for years. The family growing up there, you always heard about the kid and the kiddos, really, but mostly Patrick Jr., and that was the talk for years about just what an athlete he was. And I don't know, I'm young, sure, he's a great athlete, but, nobody could have predicted what he's eventually become and what he still has room to grow into and become later on down the road. So, yeah, he's so special, and it's amazing to watch that he's accomplished all these things already.
Well, speaking of that, last year you had 2 Big 12 quarterbacks against each other, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. He spent time at Oklahoma. Craig put this up after the game ended. Has a Super Bowl ever featured a matchup with both the quarterbacks, starters, and head coaches all from the same conference, with Mahomes Tech, with Purdy, Iowa State, with Andy Reid from BYU, and also Shanahan from UT? And then, on top of that, the Big 12 mentioned it's the second straight year the starting quarterbacks were a part of, at least a part of, at one point. Mahomes, for all of his career at Texas Tech, and Hurts, of course, spent time after being at Alabama with Oklahoma.
Yeah, but this is the tale of two different, career arcs when it comes to quarterbacks. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, Brock Purdy had a lot more success at Iowa State than Patrick Mahomes had at Texas Tech. real. I mean, look, he played for a Big 12 title for crying outside.
He had team success.
Yeah, team success.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like individual success was all Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, he won more games, as a quarterback than Mahomes did. That's why, again, it's so kind of weird. Here's the last pick in the draft. But I mean, both the quarterbacks, to me, I mean, yes, the supporting cast around Brock Purdy is fantastic, but Brock Purdy's second half yesterday and Patrick Mahomes' first half were the reasons those two teams are in the game.
Yeah, Kansas City dictated the tempo. Okay, we're here. We're not going anywhere, which should not have been a surprise. Mahomes made the big throws when they needed him to, and then, of course, Purdy, I thought, with his scrambling ability and the ability to run in some key moments. And, of course, the Lions threw up on themselves a little bit, but that's kind of part of the game and why San Francisco had the chance to come back from being down 24-7.
Yeah, Patrick didn't have to throw for 500 and be the hero. I mean, he just had to make a few plays here and there, and he's better at that than anybody, and the defense did a lot of the rest, and Kelsey did his thing, et cetera. Purdy, made some huge plays in that game when they really needed it, and that was a nice comeback by San Francisco. But, yeah, that thought crossed my mind, and I just threw it out there. I haven't thrown a lot of tweets out there here recently, but that one just I wondered about that legitimately, whether that's ever happened before. That was an honest question. It wasn't even so much of like a go Big 12 thing, even though I think that's a very cool thing for the Big 12 for a few reasons. For one, it's probably never going to happen again. For one, Kyle Shanahan will never count under the Big 12 umbrella under again, so that's not possible. And it's not like there's a whole lot of ex-Big 12 alum head coaches. I know Andy Reid didn't play there, but as far as the schools go, there's not a lot. Like, it's one thing when you look at the players around the league, and a lot of the stars come from a lot of the bigger schools, not always, but you look at the head coaching ranks, and a lot of the coaches come from the lower schools. It's not like a bunch of Alabama and Georgia and Texas and all that guys. I mean, there are, like a Shanahan, but yeah, it was just kind of interesting to go through that list and realize that that's probably not something that's likely to ever happen again, is to have both your starting quarterbacks and both your head coaches from schools within the same conference. We know this combination will never happen again for the Big 12 because of Shanahan, like I said. But yeah, I saw a lot of people jumping on the Purdy and Mahomes thing, much like last year with Hurts and Mahomes. And that's valid. But then I started thinking of like, well, shoot, I know Texas doesn't want to claim they're part of the Big 12, but they are, and they are this year. And BYU, obviously, we've got to remember that they're a part of the party as well. So yeah, I thought that was cool that it actually extends a little further. Not to mention other role players like a Travis Kelce from Cincinnati that are heavily involved in this game. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And like I said, I doubt we ever see something like that again. And I just don't know that that's something that you'll ever see very often at all.
Kim Coulter, Super Chat, $9.99. The best player in the NFL is a Texas Tech Red Raider. Period.
Yeah.
Wreck him. He's right. You're right. He is. He's phenomenal. 6 years as a starter, headed to the Super Bowl for the fourth time, and tried to become the first team in 20 years to go back-to-back as Super Bowl champions. As many times as the Patriots won it, that was the time they won it back-to-back, and all the other times they just won it pretty consistently. So it's been a while, I guess it has been 20 years.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get the whole, like, this many SEC, we'll get the breakdown of the rosters and all of that at some point. If not, that's already been put together of, like, the SEC's got 39 players in the game or whatever breakdown it might be. But like I was just saying a second ago, I just think in general this might be Fred Warner. You got to throw him into the mix as well from BYU, another big-time Big 12 player. So, I mean, there's plenty of love from all of the conferences there, but this particular matchup does have a pretty heavy dose of some Big 12 flavor, and so that'll be cool for the conference to market and utilize for these next couple of weeks. But, yeah, it's a special pairing, that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what a career-changing, intertwining of lives that became for Andy Reid and for Patrick Mahomes, because if he gets drafted by anybody else, who the heck knows where he ends up. And with Andy Reid, we know he had a great time in Philadelphia, but this has taken his career to an entirely different level.
Well, you got to think about Andy Reid. Like, I'm sure that there was some professional, disappointment within himself that he had Donovan McNabb at his peak when he was in Philadelphia. And, I mean, I know that, like, people may look back at the end of Donovan McNabb's career and be like, oh, well, he wasn't, but, like, when Donovan McNabb was really
great.
He was fantastic, especially that Super Bowl year they lost to the Patriots. He was having an unbelievable year for them, and so he only got to the Super Bowl once with Donovan McNabb. They got to the NFC title game a bunch of times, but he had this, like, he could never get over the hump. And then Patrick Mahomes was just the perfect dude to do this with, and I know that like people have varying opinions about Patrick Mahomes as far as his personality, if you like it, you don't, but he has the right amount of bravado plus humility. Like, I mean, sometimes, like, I didn't think the Kadarius Toney whining was a good look for him, but that's like the first time in his career where I was like, well, that's not a good look for you. You know, so if you're like 150-1, again, that's just how it is. But the way that those two work together so well and just get each other. I mean, Randy Reed could coach forever. I mean, like, as long as Patrick Mahomes is
a guy
there.
that was run out of Yeah, he was.
It was just, but it was time.
It was time.
Right?
They had made their run. And the run was out of gas, and so he goes to Kansas City, and now has just basically become an annual deal with Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and also the Super Bowl. So the game is in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. The two teams, you know what's in Vegas. There's a lot of casinos, a lot of gentlemen's clubs, there's a lot of sports bars, there's a lot of lights and glitz and glamour. The game there. But Arash Markazi put up this note. The Super Bowl will be played in Vegas, but the NFL wanting the teams to stay away from the Strip. Kansas City will stay at the Westin Lake Las Vegas, and San Francisco will be located at the Hilton Lake Las Vegas. Lake Las Vegas is 25 miles off of the Strip.
I know it's Vegas and it's a little bit different because it runs, but when they're in New Orleans, they don't stay off of Bourbon Street.
They're right there.
I mean,
this isn't really all that.
Like, I mean, I don't know. Again, I get there's gambling. I guess that's different, but there's also gambling right there on Bourbon Street now. So I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, I think it's just probably because of the fact it's Vegas. It just seems a little more like, oh, can't have them stay in Vegas. But really, that's kind of how it always works. I mean, they're randomly kind of positioned. They're not randomly positioned, but every year you show up, you're like, wonder where they randomly put these teams, because it's typically not like down the street from the convention center or right next to the stadium. It's like 15 miles out this way or 25 miles out this way. And so, yeah, that seems to be the same way here. But certainly there is that little extra bit about it being Las Vegas that you do probably have to really drive that home of, you don't want to get those distractions. I think that's the word that probably best sums it up, distractions. There's a lot of those in Las Vegas and a lot of craziness headed that city's way, but that city's built for it. So just maybe a little bit extra than normal, but that's going to be an interesting scene. And for the players you hear about them a lot of times during Super Bowl week, they get so focused on the game, but it's also worrying about what your family's doing and the family plans and how all that intertwines and everything. So you would like to have the players with as least distractions as possible. So it makes sense. You're not going to have them at the Mandalay Bay posted up in front of the middle of everybody.
That's why they have this week as a buffer week for everyone to worry about tickets and travel and who's going to be there and who gets this or what you can do.
I got to get out of the way of the Pro Bowl,
and it wasn't always the case. They didn't want to go up against that. That wasn't always the case. It used to be an immediate turnaround, and sometimes I don't know if the trend was whether those games were better than if you had a couple of different weeks off or not. Now, Dan